What's going on, Not Move Nation? Welcome to the Not Move podcast. Today's February 11th at 6:21 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be breaking down the NBA games today. We have a lot of games on today, so I wasn't able to, do my thorough research like I normally do. But we'll still talk about some good stuff today. There's a lot of injuries today. Um, So I'll just go over the ones that stood out to me, but you may want to look at rotowire.com, ROTO wire.com to get the full breakdown. SGA for the Oklahoma City Thunder is out due to an abdominal strain. RotoWire updated that on February 4th and said he's out through the All-Star break. Then Michael Porter Jr. for Brooklyn's out with a knee problem. Zach LaVine, the Sacramento Kings, looks like they have a lot of people out today. Zach LaVine for Sacramento out with a finger issue. DeAndre Hunter is out with an eye issue. And then RotoWire updated DeAndre Hunter's status on February 8th and said he'll be out through the All-Star break. And then Sabonis for Sacramento is out with a back issue. Russell Westbrook out for Sacramento with a back issue. Malik Monk for Sacramento out with an illness. Evan Mobley for Cleveland out with a calf issue. Dean Wade for Cleveland out with an ankle issue. Kobe White for Charlotte out with a calf issue. They updated his status on February 5th and said that he's out through the All-Star break. Zubac for Indiana out with an ankle issue. Norman Powell for Miami out with a back problem. Larson for Miami out with an elbow issue. Murray Boyles for Toronto out with a thumb issue. Players that are doubtful, doubtful meaning that they're unlikely to play. Giddey for Chicago, he's doubtful with a hamstring issue. Trey Jones for Chicago, doubtful with a hamstring issue. And Jalen Smith for Chicago, doubtful with a calf issue. Questionable players, Embiid for Philadelphia. Usually when players are questionable, there's about a 50-50 chance that they play. Embiid questionable with a knee issue. Pete Nance for Milwaukee, questionable with an ankle issue. Jalen Johnson for Atlanta, questionable with a knee issue. Risa Shea for Atlanta, questionable with a quadriceps contusion. Dyson Daniels for Atlanta, questionable with an ankle issue. Nick Claxton for Brooklyn, questionable with a hip issue. Pirtle for Toronto, questionable with a back issue. And then, let's see, Keontae George, is he still out? Yeah, Keontae George is still out for Utah today. What about Steph Curry? Like I said, I wasn't able to get all of them in here. Yes, Steph Curry is out today as well, is what they're saying here on RotoWire. And then Stephon Castle, he left the game last night, the guard for the San Antonio Spurs. He left the game last night against the Lakers, so we'll see if he returns today. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of injuries and questionable players, probable players. I'm sure there's going to be some more information that comes on throughout the day as well. So I'll keep up to date with that. Also, Andrew Wiggins is questionable, if I didn't mention that, with toe inflammation, questionable to play today. All right. First game. I'm going to try to get through this as quick as possible, give you guys the information I think is valuable. So Atlanta, 2-game losing streak. Charlotte, 1-game losing streak. Neither of these teams played yesterday. Charlotte's won 2 regular season games in a row against Atlanta. These teams have played against each other 3 times this season, and Charlotte has won 2 of those games. I won't talk about anything except the most recent game was on February 7th, and Charlotte won that game 126 to 119. Atlanta has a 6-2 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Charlotte's 3-6 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. Jalen Johnson Did I say he was questionable today? Jalen Johnson. They're saying that he could return today against Charlotte. Let's say that he does, and you like him for his point total going over. He has scored his career high point total, which was 43 points against Charlotte on December 18th, 2025. That game was also at Charlotte, like it is today. Whenever I looked, let's see, yesterday, last night at about 7 p.m. Eastern time, Charlotte was favored by 5.5, over under 231.5. I was looking at DK for those odds. It's the same today, except that total's gone up a point. So it's at 232.5 now. I looked at 3 different against the spread trends, and Charlotte wins 2 out of 3 of those trends that I normally look at. The Charlotte's better against the spread. They're 32-22 against the spread. Atlanta's 26-29. And then I looked at, how Atlanta is as a road underdog versus Charlotte as a home favorite, and how both of these teams are against the spread after a loss. Yeah, once again, Charlotte takes that 2-1 advantage there. Charlotte ranks 19th in points in the paint allowed per game, according to teamrankings.com. So they're slightly below average at defending against that. Jalen Johnson's the leader for Atlanta and ranks 8th best in the NBA in points in the paint per game, followed up by Dyson Daniels, who ranks 47th in that category. Charlotte's also slightly below average at limiting fast break points per game to opposing teams. Jalen Johnson, once again, is the leader for Atlanta in fast break points per game. He ranks 6th best in the NBA, followed up by Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who ranks 7th, and Risa Shea, who ranks 39th. And then Charlotte, they rank 14th in three-point field goals allowed per game, so right about average. So I just wanted to give you guys some three-point leaders here for Atlanta. Nickeil Alexander-Walker ranks 13th best in the NBA, first on the team in three-point field goals made per game, followed up by CJ McCollum, who ranks 27th. I do see that Charlotte is slightly below average in allowing assists per game to opposing teams. I didn't have time today to look at assist leaders and rebounds leaders. So, but if you like somebody for Atlanta on the assists today, you have that, working for you. Obviously, there's a lot more information you could look at, but, Charlotte does allow the fewest rebounds per game to opposing teams. So let's keep that in mind. Overall, team defensive efficiency, Charlotte ranks 16th, which basically, judges how good or bad a defense is, that team defensive efficiency. I can give you guys a definition here too. I'll just go to the search engine here and see what they say here. Just measures the number of points the team allows per 100 possessions. So some teams are fast-paced, some teams are slow-paced. So it takes kind of the pace of play out of the equation, because fast-paced games that are fast-paced, typically, your defense is going to allow more things to happen than in those slower games. So that takes that out of the equation. And I do want to just mention Charlotte allows the fewest free throw attempts per game to opposing teams. So that's a big strength of there, along with those rebounds per game that they limit. Atlanta, they're close to the bottom of the league in allowing points in the paint per game, but Charlotte didn't have anybody that I saw in the top 50 of the NBA in points in the paint per game when I checked this morning. But if you know somebody for Charlotte that's decent at scoring points in the paint, I think Miles Bridges ranked like 57th or something like that, and then it was Kalkbrenner. So if you like one of those guys today, you probably are looking at a somewhat favorable matchup there. Fast break points allowed per game by Atlanta. They allow the 4th most to opposing teams. Kobe White's the leader for the team, but I believe he's out. But he ranks 18th best in the NBA, and then Knipple ranks 46th best in the NBA. So out of available Hornets, I think Knipple's that fast break points per game leader for them. Also, Atlanta slightly below average at limiting 3-point field goal attempts per game to opposing teams. And, Knipple is the leader for Charlotte, ranks fifth best in that category. LaMelo Ball ranks sixth best in the NBA, second best on the team. And 3-point field goals made per game. Atlanta, they allow a good amount of assists per game to opposing teams. So if you like somebody for Charlotte on the assists today, I could see that working out for you. Atlanta ranks 23rd in assists allowed per game and 24th in rebounds allowed per game. So below average at limiting teams in both of those categories. So, if you were thinking about assist props or rebound props for Charlotte, I could, see that happening. Atlanta ranks 19th in team defensive efficiency, so a little bit worse than Charlotte. And Atlanta they rank 17th in opponent free throw attempts per game. So I didn't see anybody for Charlotte in the top 50 of the NBA in free throw attempts per game. But if you know somebody for Charlotte who's decent at getting at the line, I think, they're probably in a better situation today than than some other days. I didn't have time to look at a whole lot of triple-double stats, but I did notice that Jalen Johnson's never had a triple-double in 11 career games against Charlotte, and then LaMelo Ball has had a triple-double in 1 out of 12 career games against Atlanta. Let's move on to this Washington at Cleveland game. Washington, 2-game losing streak. Cleveland, 4-game win streak. Neither of these teams played yesterday. Cleveland has won 14 regular season games in a row against Washington. These teams have played against each other twice this season. Cleveland's won both of those meetings. Cleveland, let's see, the game that they played in Washington, Cleveland won by 33 points. And then the most recent game was in Washington as well. Cleveland won that game by 4 points. Both of them were high-scoring games, 148 to 115 in that first game, 130 to 126 in the second game. This game today is in Cleveland. Washington has a 1-6 money line record on Wednesdays this season, and Cleveland has a 7-5 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Cleveland's won seven consecutive games that they've played against any team on this exact date, February 11th. Also noticed, Donovan Mitchell has a 4-0 career record against Alex Sarr, which really isn't surprising considering Cleveland's won 14 straight regular season games against Washington. And then Coulibaly for Washington. He's questionable to play today, but he did score his career high point total, which was 27 points at Cleveland, like it is today, at Cleveland on December 13th of 2024. When I checked at about 7 p.m. Eastern time yesterday, Cleveland was favored by 17.5 on DK, over under 235.5. They're still favored by 17.5, but that over under has shot up to 238.5. So it's gone up 3 points. I looked at those against the spread trends that I normally look at. Washington leads those trends 3-0. If you want to look at that a little bit more in depth, you could go to teamrankings.com. But yeah, for time's sake, I'll just go ahead and say the 3 trends that I normally look at. Sometimes I look at 4 trends. If one team played yesterday and another team didn't, then I'll look at the rest advantage versus rest disadvantage against the spread trends. But yeah, out of the 3 trends for this game, I give Washington advantages in all of those trends. Cleveland, they're good at protecting points in the paint per game. They rank 6th best in that category. Overall, they rank 12th in team defensive efficiency, so they're above average in regard to that. Where they lack is fast break points allowed per game and 3-point field goals allowed per game. They rank 26th in fast break points allowed per game, so they allow the 5th most. Whitmore is going to be the leader for Washington in fast break points per game, ranked 17th best in the NBA. And Trey Young, who I believe is still out. I don't think they have January 14th. They said he's going to miss at least 1 month here on rotowire.com. So he's probably out today, though. And then, 3-point field goals allowed per game. Cleveland ranks 22nd in that category. So they're below average. Trey Johnson's the leader for Washington and ranks 50th in the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game. Cleveland's average at preventing assists per game to opposing teams, they rank 15th in that category. And then rebounds allowed per game, they rank 21st, so slightly below average in that aspect. So if you were thinking about somebody for Washington on the assists or rebounds today, I think they could possibly get that going. It's not like they have an exceptionally tough matchup, although Cleveland's favored by 17.5, so there is that blowout potential here in this one. Team defensive efficiency, we already talked about that with Cleveland. They are slightly below average at limiting opponent free throws per game. So if you know somebody for Washington who's decent at getting to the line, generally speaking, I give them a higher chance to get to the line, maybe shoot an extra free throw or two today than they normally do. Considering Cleveland ranks 19th in opponent free throws allowed per game. Washington, I mean, they're just a very bad defensive team. They rank 29th, so second worst in team defensive efficiency. They rank 26th in points in the paint allowed per game. So they're near the bottom of the league in that. Jarrett Allen is the leader for Cleveland in points in the paint per game, ranks 24th best in the NBA. Then we have Evan Mobley, who I believe is still out. But then it's Donovan Mitchell, who ranks 30th in points in the paint per game for Cleveland. And then, Washington ranks 23rd in fast break points allowed per game. So they're below average in that category. And Donovan Mitchell is the leader for Cleveland and fast break points per game, ranks 5th best in the NBA. And then Washington, 3-point field goals allowed per game. Just a second, guys. Sorry. Washington's below average at defending against 3-point field goals per game. They rank 21st in that category. Donovan Mitchell is the leader for the team in 3-point field goals made per game and ranks second best in the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game. And then James Harden is the next man up for Cleveland. He ranks 12th in the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game. And then let's see here. Washington allows the second most assists per game and rebounds per game to opposing teams. So if you like anybody for Cleveland on those rebound props, assist props, you have that working with you today. But yeah, once again, there's that blowout potential. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Cleveland's favored by 17.5 points. Washington allows the 4th most free throw attempts per game to opposing teams. So I could see guys like Harden take advantage of that. Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen. Harden ranks 4th in free throw attempts per game. Mitchell 21st. Jarrett Allen 44th. Then Harden, I did notice he has a triple-double in 2 of his last 25 games against Washington. Then we got Milwaukee at Orlando. Milwaukee, 1-game losing streak. Orlando, 3-game win streak. Neither of these teams played yesterday. Orlando has won 2 regular season games in a row against Milwaukee. These teams have played against each other 1 time this season, and Orlando won that game 118-99. And that game was at Orlando like it is here today. That was on February 9th, so just a couple days ago. Milwaukee has a 3-5 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Orlando's 5-2 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. Milwaukee has won 4 consecutive games that they've played against any team on this exact date. Orlando has lost 4 consecutive games that they've played any team on this exact date. And Jalen Suggs, if you like him for his point total tonight, you have the historical advantage here, and with the fact that he has scored his career high point total, which was 32 points at Milwaukee. This one today's in Orlando, but it was against Milwaukee on December 10th, 2024. And then Franz Wagner for Orlando. I'm not sure if he's available today or not. I don't see him in the projected starting lineup, but I don't see an injury designation on him either. So I would check on that. But yeah, Franz Wagner did score his career high point total, which was 38 points at home versus Milwaukee on December 28th of 2021. When I looked at the line yesterday morning at about 5:40 a.m. Eastern time yesterday, Orlando was favored by 10.5, over under 220.5. It's still the same here on DK. Now I looked at 3 different against the spread trends, and Milwaukee leads those trends 3-0. They won all of those against the spread trends that I usually look into. Milwaukee ranks 22nd in team defensive efficiency, so they're a below average defensive team. They're good at limiting points in the paint per game. They rank 5th best in that category. Then they start to slack a little bit here on the fast break points allowed per game. They rank 14th, which is still above average. But, guys that I could see possibly, taking advantage of that. Franz Wagner, if he plays, he's the leader in fast break points per game for Orlando. He ranks 11th best in the NBA, followed by Anthony Black, who ranks 24th, and Banchero, who ranks 38th. And Milwaukee is bad at defending against the 3-point shot. So if you like anybody for Orlando with the 3-point field goals today, you got that working with you. I didn't see anybody for Orlando in the top 50 of the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game. But just looking at their projected starting lineup, I'm thinking maybe Bane, assists allowed per game and rebounds allowed per game. Milwaukee is slightly below average at defending against that. So if you guys like any assist or rebound props for Orlando, you got that working with you. I just didn't have time to look at the leaders with this loaded slate this morning or today. I didn't get a chance to get league leaders for assists per game and rebounds per game. Team defensive efficiency. Yeah, we already covered that with Milwaukee. Milwaukee does rank 23rd in opponent free throw attempts allowed per game, so they're below average in that category. Banchero ranks first on the team, 7th best in the NBA in free throw attempts per game, and then it's Anthony Black who ranks 50th. Then Orlando, pretty decent defensive team. They rank 14th in team defensive efficiency. They are vulnerable to, slightly vulnerable to like points in the paint, fast break points per game. They're just a little bit below average in both of those categories. But if Giannis doesn't play again today, Milwaukee doesn't have anybody in the top 50 of the NBA in either of those categories, points in the paint per game or fast break points per game. So I think it's kind of important for Giannis to get back out there. Orlando's good at defending against the 3-point shot. They rank 2nd best in the NBA in 3-point field goals allowed per game to opposing teams. So I'm not saying that Milwaukee 3-point shooters can't have success today. I mean, any given day, right? But I think today they have a little bit tougher of a matchup than usual, considering Orlando ranks 2nd best in defending against that 3-point shot. And then assists allowed per game and rebounds allowed per game, Orlando's above average at defending against both of those categories. They rank 8th best in the NBA at both of those categories. Orlando below average at allowing opponents to get free throw attempts against them. They ranked 24th in that category, but I didn't see anybody for Milwaukee in the top 50 of the NBA in free throw attempts per game. But if Giannis ends up playing in this game, I could see him taking advantage of that. We know that he can get to that free throw line. Then we got Chicago at Boston. Chicago 5-game losing streak. Boston 1-game losing streak. Neither of these teams played yesterday. Chicago has won one regular season game in a row against Boston. These teams have played against each other twice this season, and each team has won one game. The most recent game was on January 24th, so a couple weeks ago, and Chicago won by 3 points, 114 to 111. That game was in Chicago. They have played a game in Boston this season, which was January 5th, and Boston won that by 14 points, 115 to 101. Boston has won 3 consecutive games that they've played against any team on February 11th. Chicago 6-4 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Boston 6-3 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Vucevic revenge game. He was just recently traded by Chicago to Boston. So there is that revenge aspect that, if you like looking at that type of stuff, he was recently traded from Chicago to Boston. When I checked last night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Boston was favored by 13.5, over under 226.5 on DK. I'm still seeing that they're favored by 13.5, but the total has gone down a couple points. It's gone from 226.5 to 224.5 here on DK. Looked at 3 different against the spread trends in this game, and Boston leads those trends 2-1. They 2-1 Boston. 2 out of the 3 trends that I looked at against the spread, Boston's advantage there. Boston is a very good defensive team. They rank 7th in team defensive efficiency. I don't really see many vulnerabilities with Boston except their 3-point defense. They rank 25th in 3-point field goals allowed per game to opposing teams. So I think Chicago's got to try to take advantage of that to stay competitive in this game tonight. The leader for the leader for Chicago in 3-point field goals made per game is Anthony Simons, who ranks 25th best in the NBA in that category. So I feel like, he's got to go off tonight to stay competitive here. But other than that, Boston, real good defensive team. They do rank 13th in rebounds allowed per game, so just slightly above average in that category. So if you do like somebody for Chicago getting some rebounds today, I don't absolutely dislike the play, Chicago, they're a bad defensive team. They rank 26th in team defensive efficiency. They allow the 4th most points in the paint per game to opposing teams. Jaylen Brown leads the Boston Celtics and ranks 7th best in the NBA in points in the paint per game. And then it's Vucevic, 2nd best on the team, ranks 50th for Boston in points in the paint per game. Chicago slightly below average at allowing fast break points per game. Jaylen Brown is the leader for the Celtics. He ranks 19th best in the NBA in fast break points per game. And then Chicago below average at defending against that 3-point shot too. They rank 23rd in 3-point field goals allowed per game to opposing teams. So Derek White is the leader for Boston in 3-point field goals made per game. He ranks 20th in the NBA in that category, followed by Sam Hauser, who ranks 29th, and Pritchard, who ranks 30th. Chicago allows the 3rd most assists per game to opposing teams. So if you like somebody for Boston on the assist today, you have that working in your favor. And Chicago is slightly below average in allowing rebounds per game to opposing teams. So If you like somebody for Boston on the rebounds today, I could see that possibly working out there for you. All right, and then we got Indiana at Brooklyn. Indiana played yesterday, but Brooklyn did not. Brooklyn's won one regular season game in a row against Indiana. These teams have played against each other one time this season, which was on November 5th at Indiana. This game today is in Brooklyn, but Brooklyn won by a final score of 112 to 103. So Brooklyn won by 9 points. Indiana has a 2-7 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Brooklyn's 2-5 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. Indiana's lost 3 consecutive games that they've played any team on February 11th. And I looked, let's see, last night, 10 p.m. Eastern time, Brooklyn was favored by 3.5. Today, I'm looking on DK, and they're favored by 5.5. The over-under was 213.5 last night. It's climbed up to 215.5. I looked at 3 different against the spread trends. Brooklyn wins 2 out of 3 of those trends. Team defensive efficiency, Indiana ranks 21st in that category, so they're a little bit below average in regards to team defensive efficiency. They allow the second most points in the paint per game to opposing teams. Claxton is the leader for Brooklyn and ranks 46th best in the NBA in points in the paint per game, but I think he's questionable. Also mentioned like Michael Porter Jr. is questionable. Or no, he's out, right? Yeah, so Brooklyn, they're already, out. Their star player is already out today. So if Claxton ends up being ruled out, that's a pretty big hit to them. Yeah, we're talking about Indiana here. They're good at limiting fast break points per game, and I talked about it yesterday. They allow the fewest 3-point field goals made per game to opposing teams. A great 3-point defense. They're above average in assists allowed per game to opposing teams, but they do rank 30th, so last. They allow the most rebounds per game to opposing teams. So if you like anybody for Brooklyn on those rebounds today, you got that working with you. And then they allow the second most free throw attempts per game to opposing teams. So if you know somebody for Brooklyn who's decent at drawing some contact, I could see them putting up, getting an extra free throw attempt or 2 today, considering Indiana's, they like to send their opponents to the free throw line. Michael Porter Jr. is the only person for Brooklyn in that top 50, though, in free throw attempts per game. And then team defensive efficiency for Brooklyn, they rank 25th in that category. So there's a little bit worse than Indiana. Both of them are below average defenses in that regard. Brooklyn allows the 6th most points in the paint per game to opposing teams. Zubac, who I think is still out, right? For Indiana, that's what they're saying here on rotowire.com. He's the leader for Indiana in points in the paint per game. But with him being out, it's going to be Siakam, who ranks 12th best in the NBA in points in the paint per game. Then here's Siakam again, who I could see take advantage of Brooklyn's fast break defense. They allow the second most fast break points per game to opposing teams. Siakam's the leader for Indiana and ranks 40th best in the NBA in that category. Brooklyn is also good at defending against 3-point field goals made per game to opposing teams, just like Indiana. They rank 6th best, Brooklyn does, in that category. They are slightly below average in assists allowed per game to opposing teams. So if you like anybody for Indiana on the assists today, I think, TJ McConnell is one of the leaders in assists per game. And I think maybe it's Nimhard who's even better. But, I could see Brooklyn possibly taking advantage of that. Indiana. Brooklyn, they rank 12th in rebounds allowed per game. So not exceptional, but they are above average. In case you were thinking about taking a rebound prop there for Indiana today. Just wanted to get you guys that information. And then free throw attempts per game, Brooklyn ranks 14th in that category. So not, once again, not exceptional, but they are above average at limiting that. But if you know somebody for Indiana who's decent at getting to the free throw line, I think, they could do what they do in this game today. It's not like Brooklyn is immune to sending opponents to the free throw line. Then we got the Knicks at Sixers. Knicks did play yesterday. Philadelphia did not. The Knicks have won one regular season game in a row against Philadelphia. The Knicks have a 9-3 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Philadelphia has a 2-3 money line record on Wednesdays this season. These teams have played against each other 3 times this season, and Philadelphia has won 2 of those games. The only game that they played in Philadelphia, like it is here today, was on January 24th, and the Knicks ended up winning that game 112-109. I did notice that Embiid has a 9-5 career record against Karl Anthony Towns. When I looked yesterday morning at 5:40 a.m. Eastern time, the Knicks were favored by 2.5 points, and the over-under was 223.5. Now the Knicks are 2-point underdogs. 2.5-point underdogs on DK, and the over-under, the total has dropped to 222.5. So that's somewhat of a big swing there. When I was looking at these against the spread trends, I had against the spread for the Knicks as a road favorite, but now they're a road underdog. So I'm just going to delete that trend. But I still see 3 other trends for Philadelphia that gives them that 3. I see 3 trends out of the 3 trends that I have left against the spread that favors Philadelphia. But if you're interested in looking at how the Knicks are as a road underdog against the spread versus the Philadelphia 76ers as a home favorite, you could do that over at what I think it was teamrankings.com. It was, right? Yeah, teamrankings.com. I can do it real quick. Knicks as a road underdog. They're 4-5 against the spread as a road underdog. Philly as a home favorite is 8-11. So I think the Knicks do have a higher winning percentage there, but still Philadelphia wins those trends. And then team defensive efficiency. Both of these teams are slightly they're about average. The Knicks are slightly above average in regard to team defensive efficiency. They rank 11th in that category. Philadelphia ranks 15th. With Philadelphia, the main problems that I see with them is the fast break points allowed per game. So Mikal Bridges for the Knicks, I could see taking advantage of that vulnerability, considering that he ranks first on the team, 21st best in the NBA and fast break points per game. And then it's Brunson, who ranks 45th. And I want to stop real quick. I want to kind of show you guys the difference, or tell you guys the difference. I'm sure a lot of you already know, especially if you tune into my breakdowns regularly. But for those of you that don't, so the fast break point advantage versus the points in the paint per game advantage. So I think points in the paint per game are more valuable. Those advantages are more valuable than the fast break points per game, really, because there's typically more points in the paint scored per game than fast break points by a single player. For instance, Giannis, right? He ranks first in the NBA in points in the paint per game, and he averages 18.7 points in the paint per game. Okay. LeBron James is the fast break points per game leader in the NBA, and he averages 5.6 fast break points per game. So there's a big difference between the amount of points that are typically scored with those two stats. Okay, so but Mikal Bridges is that leader, right? And then it's Brunson and fast break points per game. And then Philadelphia, they are below average at defending against assists per game and rebounds per game. They rank 24th in assists allowed per game, 23rd in rebounds allowed per game. So if you guys like anybody for the Knicks on the assists and or rebounds, I could see that working out for you. And then they are just slightly below average at sitting their opponents to the free throw line. They rank 16th in opponent free throw attempts per game. Maxey is the leader for the Sixers and ranks 23rd best in the NBA. We're talking about Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia ranks 18th in free throw attempts allowed per game. So a little bit below average at that. Karl Anthony Towns is the leader for the Knicks, ranks 20th in the NBA in free throw attempts per game, followed by Brunson, who ranks 26th in that category. And then for the Knicks, we talked about it yesterday. They're a pretty solid defense with the exception of those 3-point field goals allowed per game. They rank 24th in that category. I think they lost that 3-point battle last night too. I want to look at these team stats real quick. Yeah, so yeah, they lost that 3-point battle last night to the Pacers. Pacers had went 18 for 45 from downtown. Knicks 14 out of 46. So that's really not surprising, right? Considering that Indiana is really good at defending against the 3-point field goal attempts, and the Knicks are that's like their biggest flaw. So, uh, but Maxey is the leader for Philadelphia in 3-point field goals made per game and ranks 8th best in the NBA in that category. But yeah, the Knicks do everything else pretty well. They are in the top 10 in points in the paint allowed per game, fast break points allowed per game, assists allowed per game, rebounds allowed per game. They do rank 16th, so a little bit below average in free throw attempts allowed per game. And Maxey, once again, is the leader for Philadelphia and ranks 23rd best in the NBA in free throw attempts per game. Then we got Detroit at Toronto. Neither of these teams played yesterday. Detroit has won 6 regular season games in a row against Toronto. Detroit has a 5-3 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Toronto 6-4 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. These teams have not played against each other this season. Cade Cunningham, the projected starting point guard for the Detroit Pistons, has a 5-1 career record against Scotty Barnes, the projected power forward for the Raptors. And I did notice Brandon Ingram, shooting guard for Toronto, has a 2-0 career record against Cade Cunningham. Small sample size, but just wanted to get that in there. Detroit, when I checked yesterday morning at 5:40 a.m. Eastern time, Detroit was favored by 1.5 on DK, and they still are. The over-under was 223.5. It is now 222.5. I looked at 3 different against the spread trends in this game. Toronto has advantages in 2 out of 3 of those trends. And I don't really have much to say about this game because these are just 2 very good defensive teams. Detroit ranks 2nd in team defensive efficiency. Toronto ranks 6th best in the NBA in team defensive efficiency. So when I'm looking at those major categories that I usually talk about, I don't see, any. I don't see any big flaws with these teams. Really, they both have the same flaw, which is sending their opponents to the free throw line. The Pistons send their opponents to the free throw line more times per game than any other team in the league. Brandon Ingram for Toronto is the leader for Toronto in free throw attempts per game, 36th best in the NBA. And then it's Scotty Barnes. And then Toronto is slightly below average at that category, and at allowing their opponents to get to the free throw line. They rank 20th in opponent free throw attempts per game. Cade Cunningham's the leader for Detroit in free throw attempts per game, and then it's Duran who ranks 30th in the NBA in that category. But yeah, these teams are really in the top 10 in all of those categories that I talk about, except for, I would say Toronto, other than those free throw attempts allowed. I would say their biggest vulnerability is going to be the 3-point field goals allowed per game. They rank 11th in that category, which is still above average. But and then for Detroit, same spot, the 3-point shot. So I think whoever shoots the 3-point shot better tonight probably comes out with this win. Then we got the Clippers at Rockets. Clippers 1-game losing streak. Houston 2-game win streak. These teams played against each other yesterday. And yeah, Houston won. These teams have played against each other 3 times this season. Houston leads the season series 2-1. The Clippers have a 2-4 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Houston has a 6-3 money line record on Wednesdays this season. When I checked this morning, Houston was favored by 9.5, over under 209.5. I see it's dropped. The over unders dropped to 208.5. Since I wasn't able to look at the line last night since they were playing. Looked at 3 different against the spread trends in this game, and the Clippers lead 2-1 in those trends. So they win 2 out of 3 of those against the spread trends that I looked into. Houston, I mentioned this yesterday, very good defensive team. So I don't have any players listed here for the Clippers. But ballers are going to ball. They, Kawhi Leonard could go out there and ball out of control, right, against any defense. But Houston, they are a good defense. They rank 4th in team defensive efficiency. So I don't see, any big flaws with Houston. I would say they're the worst at fast break points allowed per game. They rank 12th in that category, which is still above average. And points in the paint allowed per game, they rank 11th. But, for the Clippers, they are below average in regards to team defensive efficiency. They rank 20th in that category. This is going to probably sound a little bit repetitive from yesterday, right, since this is the exact same game today. But, the Clippers are below average in fast break points allowed per game. Amen Thompson, I could see taking advantage of that today, considering that he ranks 1st on the team, 36th best in the NBA in fast break points per game. And then the Clippers rank 18th in 3-point field goals allowed per game, slightly below average. Guys who are good for Houston at 3-point field goals made per game are going to be Reed Shepherd, Durant, and Jabari Smith Jr. Reed Shepherd ranks 41st in the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game. Durant 44th, Jabari Smith 46th. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game because both teams are pretty solid at limiting the assists per game, rebounds per game. But really, that's where I see the biggest flaws. The Clippers' fast break points allowed per game and 3-point defense. Portland at Minnesota. Portland 3-game win streak. Minnesota 1-game win streak. Neither of these teams played yesterday. Minnesota's won 2 regular season games in a row against Portland. These teams have played against each other 1 time earlier this season, and it was at Portland. This game today is at Minnesota. But Minnesota did win that game 118-114. That game was also played on a Wednesday like it is here today. Portland has a 5-4 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Minnesota's 4-5. I did notice Avila, the projected starting small forward for Portland today, has an 8-4 career record against Anthony Edwards. When I checked at 7 p.m. Eastern time last night, Minnesota was favored by 7.5 points, over under 235.5. Minnesota is still favored by 7.5, but that over under has gone up to 238.5. Look at three different against the spread trends. Portland wins all three of those trends. Portland is slightly below average in team defensive efficiency. They rank 18th in that category. Their biggest flaw is the fast break points allowed per game. They allow the third most out of any team in the league. So Desunmu is the leader for Minnesota in fast break points per game. He ranks 14th best in the NBA in that category, followed by Anthony Edwards, who's a good fast break points per game scorer as well. He ranks 16th best in the NBA in that category. And then, points in the paint allowed per game. Portland slightly below average at defending against that. They rank 17th. Julius Randle is the leader for Minnesota in points in the paint per game. He ranks 26th best in the NBA in that category. Then it's Ant-Man, who ranks 27th best in the NBA in points in the paint per game. Anthony Edwards. And then Portland, they are slightly below average at limiting opponent free throw attempts per game. They rank 21st in that category. Anthony Edwards, leader for the Timberwolves, ranks 10th best in the NBA in free throw attempts per game. Julius Randle, 18th. Gobert, 46th. Minnesota, slightly above average in regards to team defensive efficiency. They rank 10th in that category. Minnesota, points in the paint allowed per game. That is their biggest, pretty much their biggest flaw here. They rank 16th in that category. So just slightly below average, but Avila is the leader for Portland in points in the paint per game, ranks 27th best in the NBA, and then Sharp ranks 38th in that category. Both of these teams, good, but they're both above average at limiting 3-point field goals per game, made per game. I don't know if I mentioned it, but Portland does rank 16th in assists allowed per game, so just slightly below average. Minnesota ranks 16th in rebounds allowed per game, so slightly below average for Minnesota there is on that. Portland ranks 16th in assists allowed per game. Minnesota 16th in rebounds allowed per game. And then Minnesota does send their opponents to the free throw line quite often. They rank 25th in opponent free throw attempts per game. Avila is not only the leader for Portland in free throw attempts per game, but he ranks second best at that category in the NBA, followed by Jeremy Grant, who ranks 19th, Sharp, who ranks 43rd. I was kind of looking at that Portland and Philadelphia game the other night that they played, and I was just looking at the lineups. I was looking at Portland. I was like, man, this team really isn't that bad. I'm not saying that they're going to win or anything tonight, but their lineup just looked good the other night. I forgot who they had in there. Maybe it's the same one that I'm looking at now, but Miami at the Pelicans. I do want to talk about this game. I just want to make sure I have time for the bigger games. Let's cover the games I think people are going to be interested in the most. Really, San Antonio Spurs at Golden State Warriors. I mentioned Steph Curry's out today, so that's unfortunate. But the Spurs are on a 5-game win streak. Golden State 1-game win streak. The Spurs did play the Lakers yesterday and rolled them. Golden State did not play yesterday. Golden State's won 2 regular season games in a row against the Spurs. These teams have played against each other twice this season, and Golden State has won both of those games. So the Spurs are 8-2 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. Golden State's 4-3 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. Draymond Green has a 4-1 career record against Wembanyama. When I checked yesterday morning, 5:40 a.m. Eastern time. Yesterday morning, the Spurs were favored by 5.5 on DK. Now they're favored by 6.5. The over/under was 216.5. When I checked yesterday morning, now it's at 220.5. I looked at 4 different against the spread trends in this game. The Spurs lead all 4 of those trends that I looked at. Points in the paint allowed per game. Golden State ranks 14th in that category, so right about average. Wembanyama's the leader for the Spurs and ranks 33rd best in the NBA in points in the paint per game. Fast break points allowed per game. Golden State below average at limiting that. They rank 22nd in that category. Castle, who's questionable to play in this game, is the leader. He's not officially questionable, but he left the game yesterday. But he is the leader on the team in fast break points per game. And then it's Vassell, who ranks 49th best in the NBA. Golden State's just about average as an assist allowed per game. They rank 13th, really a little bit above average in that regard. But they rank 15th in rebounds allowed per game. So if you're thinking about, assist props or rebound props for the Spurs today, you don't have an exceptionally tough matchup on paper. But anything could happen any given night, right? The Spurs, they're a good defensive team. They rank 3rd in team defensive efficiency. I don't really see any big vulnerabilities with them. The main flaw that I see with the Spurs is their 3-point defense, which is maybe why they've lost to the Warriors earlier this season. My guess is that Steph Curry played in those games. So that would be my guess. But since he's out, Moody is that next man up for Golden State that leads this team in 3-point field goals made per game. I think Pat Spencer could shoot some threes, though, too, right? Let me go check out his game log a little bit. He shot 10 3-point field goals the other day, 3 days ago, or 3 games ago. He's shot 5 his last couple games. So he's putting up some 3-pointers. I could see him possibly having a decent game in this one. But yeah, the Spurs, they're just really good at everything else. They rank 2nd in fast break points allowed per game, 7th in points in the paint allowed per game, 12th in assists allowed per game, and 9th in rebounds allowed per game. Okay, I definitely wanted to get that game out of the way. Then Oklahoma City at Phoenix. I think this is an intriguing matchup. Both of these teams are on a 1-game win streak. Oklahoma City did not play yesterday, but Phoenix did. Phoenix has won 1 regular season game in a row against Oklahoma City, but Oklahoma City has won the last 8 out of 10 regular season games against Phoenix. These teams have played against each other 3 times already this season, and Oklahoma City has won 2 out of 3 of those games. The most recent game was on January 4th. That game was at Phoenix, like it is today, and Phoenix ended up winning that game 108-105. In fact, Oklahoma City won both of their games that they played Phoenix in Oklahoma City, and Phoenix has won their only game that they played in Phoenix. This game today is in Phoenix. Oklahoma City has a 7-2 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Phoenix is 4-3 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. When I checked yesterday morning, it's 5:40 a.m. Eastern time. Oklahoma City was favored by 6.5. Now I'm seeing currently they're favored by 7.5. The over/under was 217.5. I'm seeing it's dropped to 216.5. I looked at 4 different against the spread trends since we have that rest advantage versus rest disadvantage against the spread trend in this one. And Phoenix leads, 3-1. So 3 out of 4 Phoenix against the spread trend advantages here. They win 3 out of 4 of those trends. They're actually the best team against the spread this season. They have the third best against the spread record as a home underdog. Ranks third best against the spread after a win. So yeah, two good defensive teams here. Oklahoma City ranks first in team defensive efficiency. Phoenix ranks 8th. So both these teams are really good with the defense, especially Oklahoma City. You know, they rank first in points in the paint allowed per game, first in fast break points allowed per game. So they don't allow anything except there's a couple flaws here with Oklahoma City. Their biggest flaw is that 3-point defense. They allow the 4th most 3-point field goals made per game to opposing teams. And, you know, Phoenix has some decent 3-point shooters. Gillespie, who ranks 15th best in the NBA, first on the team in 3-point field goals made per game, followed by Royce O'Neal, who ranks 23rd. Dylan Brooks, who ranks 37th best in the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game. I mean, we know Devin Booker could, even chuck up some threes. So I think Oklahoma City's, got to try to do a better job at defending against that tonight. Also, Oklahoma City allows a good amount of rebounds per game to opposing teams. I think Mark Williams is the leader here for Phoenix in rebounds per game. But Oklahoma City does rank 25th in that category. So if you like any rebound props for Phoenix players tonight, you have that working with you. Phoenix, I mean, they're good. Phoenix is good defensively. Their biggest flaw is really the free throw attempts per game that they allow to their opponents. They rank 22nd in that category. SGA, aka the free throw merchants, who ranks third best in the NBA in free throw attempts per game, isn't available to play in this game tonight. So Chet Holmgren is that next leader for Oklahoma City in free throw attempts per game. He ranks 42nd best in the NBA in that category. Rebounds allowed per game. Phoenix isn't exceptional at that, but they are slightly above average. They rank 14th in rebounds allowed per game. So maybe if you like, Chet, Hartenstein, maybe even some Jalen Williams on the rebound props tonight. I don't see like any major red flags. But I don't also see any major green flags. But just because they rank 14th in that category doesn't mean that you can't find something that makes you, see a green flag on Chet's rebounds tonight or something like that, Okay, let's see what else here. I'm looking forward to this Miami and New Orleans Pelicans game too. Miami 1-game losing streak, Pelicans 2-game win streak. Neither of these teams played yesterday. Miami has won 3 regular season games in a row against the Pelicans. Miami's also won the last 9 out of 10 regular season games against the Pelicans. These teams have played each other one time this season at Miami. This game's in New Orleans tonight, but in that game, Miami won by 19 points, 125 to 106. Miami has a 2-5 money line record on Wednesdays this season. The Pelicans have a 2-9 money line record on Wednesdays this season. When I looked last night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, Pelicans were favored by 1.5, and they still are here today. The over-under hasn't changed either, 232.5. I looked at 3 different against the spread trends on this one. Miami leads those. Miami has advantages in 2 out of 3 of those trends. Miami ranks 5th in team defensive efficiency, so they're solid in regards to that. And then the Pelicans rank 27th, so the Pelicans defense is pretty bad. The Pelicans rank 23rd in points in the paint allowed per game. I don't believe Tyler Harrow is going to be playing in this one. He is the leader he's out. is what I'm seeing on rotowire.com. He's the leader for the team, ranks 32nd best in the NBA in points in the paint per game. But then Jaquez ranks 35th. I think Jaquez has been a little off lately, if I'm not mistaken, though. Let's just go take a look real quick. I think he's just not shooting too well in his last couple games. Yeah, he went 1 for 7 in his last game. Sorry. Yeah, he went 1 for 7 in his last game from the field, and then 2 for 12 in the game before that. So maybe you like taking a player prop whenever you see that they're not doing so good. But he does rank 35th best in the NBA and first for the team out of available players tonight in points in the paint per game. And then, Pelicans rank 24th in fast break points allowed per game, so below average at defending against that. Norman Powell, who I think he's out too, if I'm not mistaken. Miami at New Orleans. Norman Powell, yeah, he is out. He's the leader, and then it's Harrow. Andrew Wiggins ranks 50th best in the NBA in fast break points per game. So it looks like he is the only one that could be available tonight out of Miami's top 3 fast break points per game leaders. But even Wiggins is questionable. 3-point field goals allowed per game. The Pelicans allow the second most 3-pointers per game to opposing teams. But since Powell's out, there's nobody for Miami in the top 50 in 3-point field goals made per game. Trying to see maybe if like Fontecchio or something shoots some threes. Yeah, Fontecchio can shoot some threes. I could see him possibly stepping in that 3-point role today. Fontecchio. Anyways. And basically, the shop is open here for Miami props. New Orleans they're near the bottom of the league in assists allowed per game, rebounds allowed per game. Will say that they limit their opponent free throw attempts decently. They rank 13th in that category. Miami, they're below average at allowing points in the paint per game to opposing teams as well. So Zion Williamson not only ranks first on the team, but second best in the NBA in points in the paint per game. Trey Murphy, I could see possibly taking advantage of that 20th ranked Miami 3-point field goals allowed per game defense. Trey Murphy ranks first on the team, 9th best in the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game. But I'm not looking at how Miami defends against his specific position. I'm not looking at how Trey Murphy has played against Miami, how he's done against Wiggins, how has he done in the last 10 or 20 games. I think all of that information can be important as well. Anything else I want to talk about for this game? Miami, even though they rank 5th in team defensive efficiency, I don't really. Let's go take a look real quick. Pace of play, NBA. Possessions per game, and that makes complete sense, right? Miami ranks first. I was questioning why Miami ranked 5th in team defensive efficiency, yet they rank bad in all of these other categories. Below average in the points in the paint allowed per game, 3-point field goals allowed per game, assists allowed per game, rebounds allowed per game. And it makes sense now because Miami is the fastest team in regards to pace of play. Number of possessions per game, they average the most out of any team in the league. So that's the cool thing about looking at team defensive efficiency is it takes that pace of play out of the equation and just looks at per 100 possessions, because of course teams that play at a faster pace are going to allow more points per game than teams that play at a snail's pace. Let's see, what game did we not talk about? We talked about that one. Oklahoma City at Phoenix, we covered. The Nuggets game, I don't really have much to say about this except, I could see the Nuggets taking advantage of Memphis's 3-point defense or lack thereof. Memphis ranks third worst at defending against 3-point field goals made per game to opposing teams. Jamal Murray is the leader for the Nuggets, ranks 10th best in the NBA in that category. And then Tim Hardaway Jr. ranks 21st in 3-point field goals made per game. And with Edie and Morant being out, they have been out. I don't know if that's still the case today. I would assume so. Yeah, it looks like Edie is going to miss some time. Durant as well. So it doesn't look like those guys are going to be available. Um, but if they were, the Nuggets do rank 15th in points in the paint allowed per game. Cam Spencer is the leader for Memphis here today in 3-point field goals made per game, and the Nuggets rank 17th in 3-point field goals allowed per game, so slightly below average in that regard. Memphis slightly below average in assists allowed per game and rebounds allowed per game. So if you like any Nuggets, for the assists or rebounds, you're not going up against, an impossible task here today. I don't know if I really went over any of these trends. I looked at 3 different against the spread trends in this game, the Nuggets and Grizzlies. Nuggets lead all 3 of those trends. And when I looked last night at 7 p.m. Eastern time at the spreads, I saw Denver was favored by 13.5 points. And they still are. Over under 235.5. I'm seeing it at 237.5 now. So that total has gone up a little bit. Neither of these teams did play yesterday. The Nuggets have won 3 regular season games in a row against Memphis and have won the last 8 out of 10 regular season games against Memphis. They've played one time earlier this season. That game was in Memphis. The one here today is in Denver. But in that game, Denver won by 10 points, 125 to 115. Memphis is 5-5 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. The Nuggets are 8-1 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. And that's all I got to say about that game. You know what game I'm really looking forward to tonight more than any other game? I feel like, I'm interested in, a lot of these games. I think it's a pretty good slate, but I want to see this Sacramento Kings versus Utah Jazz game. The Kings are on a 13-game losing streak. The Jazz 1-game win streak. Neither of these teams played yesterday. Utah's won 1 regular season game in a row against Sacramento. But Sacramento has won the last 9 out of 10 regular season games against Utah. So that's pretty cool. We have a team that's on a 13-game losing streak, but they've won the last 9 out of 10 regular season games in a row against the team that they're playing against tonight. These teams have played twice this season, and each of them have won 1 game. The most recent game was in Utah, like it is here today, and Utah won by 9 points, 128 to 119. Sacramento 2-8 money line record on Wednesdays this season. Utah 1-5 on the money line on Wednesdays this season. I did notice too, man, that DeRozan, who, for Sacramento, they're depleted right now. I mentioned all of their injuries, but DeRozan does have a 13-2 career record against Markkanen. When I checked, yesterday at 10 p.m. Eastern time, Utah was favored by 6.5. They're now favored by 7.5 on DK. minus 102, so it really hasn't changed. But over under 230.5. It was 234.5 last night, so it's gone down 4 points. I looked at three different against the spread trends. I see that Utah has that 3-0 advantage there. Utah wins all three of those against the spread trends. I think a big reason why I'm looking forward to this game so much is because both of these teams are bad in team defensive efficiency. Utah ranks 30th in that category. Sacramento ranks 28th. Um, but with like Sabonis being out and Levine, Keegan Murray, I mean, it's going to be tough for Sacramento. I'm just looking at their starting lineup here, and it doesn't look like the game I was looking forward to. I think if these guys were in, it would be a much funner game to watch, and it still might be. Um, but really, really Utah, or excuse me, Utah. They're a little bit below average in allowing points in the paint per game. All of the players that I have listed here for Sacramento are out. Where I see that they have advantages. Sabonis, good at scoring points in the paint. He's out. Utah allows the most fast break points and 3-point field goals made per game to opposing teams. Levine, Keegan Murray out. So I mean, basically, if you can find, if there's any prop that you guys like in this game, I mean, you're going up against a below average defense. Except I do want to mention that Sacramento ranks 8th in fast break points allowed per game and 10th in 3-point field goals allowed per game. So although they are a bad defensive team, they've done decently at limiting those two things. Really, they're bad at those points in the paint. So I think Markkanen and Jaren Jackson can eat those points in the paint. And then, free throw attempts per game. Both of these teams send their opponents to the free throw line often. Keontae George is the leader for Utah in free throw attempts per game, ranks 12th in the NBA, but I think he's out today, right? But then it's Markkanen, who ranks 15th in free throw attempts per game, and then Jaren Jackson Jr. Yeah, Keontae George is still out. But then, Utah, they also allow a good amount of free throw attempts per game to opposing teams. DeRozan ranks first on the team, 29th best in the NBA in that category. And I think that about does it. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. Hopefully, this gives you a good foundation to work with to start your day here. I want to say thank you to the sponsors, BetUS, MyBookie.ag, Walmart.com, Open Goal, the MLB and NFL Pro Shops, and W Energy Drinks. Good luck today, everybody, on those slips, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.
This non-casual podcast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or reused without the authorized written consent of the Not Move Podcast Network. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.